moving, not to add new additions. And the addition of a new school board position, the sixth position, at $5,706. The budget shortfall, as we propose it, would be if we add the $730,000 from the state, the decrease of $40,000, we are in the total budget request of $2,272,000. The projected shortfall will be $1,583,000. With that, we would ask that the county transfer go from the present number of $11,216,270 to $12,798,885. The projected revenues would be from the local, and that's just money that we get for paying for dual enrollment courses and tuition from students that are out of county, $28,000. State would be the $23,899,000, federal $1,135,000, county at the $12,798,000 for a total budget request of $37,861,000 or $862,000, which is about a 6% increase, but a 14% increase requested of the county. Here is the county transfers over the past 6 years, fiscal year 2009 to what we're proposing for 2014. Projected expenditures, instruction would be an increase of 7%, attendance and administration and health 11%, transportation 4%, operation and maintenance 1%, facilities none, and the total again would be a 6% increase in the budget. Special funds as a reduction of overall $1.3 million. And you can see the breakdown as we go into it. Anything that's in parentheses, the school food service, we're expecting an increase. That's pretty much an independent fund, and we've done very well there at managing that, not having to use any instructional or any monies to support that. The Title II reduction, mentor-teacher reduction, project graduation, which is a program to expedite students that are falling behind and not going to graduate on time, a small reduction. 21st Century was a grant that we received that we were doing some STEM projects at the middle school, and want to thank the middle school staff and many of the central office administrators for getting that grant. Title I improvements, a total reduction. The Virginia FDNA, or Healthy Youth Program, a reduction of $42,000. No decreases in Title III, which is our students with English as a second language. You can see the job recoveries money, $960,000, totally gone out of the budget, and the VPPI, which is a major program for us, a reduction of $322,950 for a total reduction of $1,302,000. Again, that is our presentation. If I can, I would like to again thank the board for all the cooperation and the many meetings that have been held between a couple board members from each board, and the work and support of Mr. Cully. I thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Kelo. Board members, this is really our first time getting a presentation of the school board budget. I'm not sure we're fully ready to ask questions, but I'll check and see. Before I do, Mr. Cully, the request from the school board was for $12,798,000, which is $11,216,000 is what we appropriated last year. And your budget had in it, your proposed budget had in it 11.6, 11.7?
11.6 and 66 for the process.
Okay. So we're million apart?
Yes, sir.
Seems like in this set, and I'm sure there'll be some more discussion. The raises for all of the staff, getting 2% from the state for just
Select.
standards of quality teachers,
Yes, not all staff.
which doesn't include the janitors, the bus drivers, anybody else.
Yes, sir.
And you would like to give everybody a 5% raise?
4.
Four.
4, yes, sir.
Which means that's how much extra money again?
That was
$727,000? No, 1.14.
$1,144,000.
Okay, so all of that represents raise money.
Right, and you have to go into part of the personnel and benefits because that includes VRS, health, and so forth.
Okay. All righty. Now we're, like I said, a little more or less than $1 million apart and $40 million budget, 2%, something in that range.
Well, this has been, last year we were this is good, we.
Well, and that's really, that was my purpose, because I want to say how good we are in being only $1 million apart, because I think I read Spotsylvania and Stafford are, $40 and $50 million apart, which is like 10% of their budget.
Right.
So we're 2% difference, and we're trying to work that out. Okay, Mr. Black, questions?
None at this time.
Mr. Seeley,
None at this time, Mr. Chairman.
this is the only time we're going to get right now, but Mr. Underwood?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Akers?
The only question I would have...
Your mic on.
The only question I would have had to do with the special funds,
Yes, sir.
the $960,000 and the $322,000. What programs are they now?
Okay, the $960,688 was the ARRA monies that were the job stimulus fund from the federal government.
American Recovery and Reinvestment Act.
Act, right. And then I'm going to let Dr. Broadus answer the VPPI.
This was a special grant award when we did the teachers who were designated as exemplary. Was a one-time only grant. So this money will not.
That was the bonus pay
For exemplary teachers.
that we did with the state, and it was a grant from state of Virginia.
Thank you.
That's it. Mr. Taylor?
No, I don't have.
Okay. Dr. Kilo, thank you again. We appreciate it. We will actually be having a joint meeting on the 26th. The purpose of that was to talk about the capital improvements program. I'm sure there'll be a time then where we have some budget questions.
All right. Thank you.
So we'll see you then. There was something good about the schools I wanted to make sure. Oh, the positives that you have continued, did you send that to us so we could put it on our website?
Yes, I'll make sure Candace gets that to you.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. You have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
And now it's time for the audit report. We have representatives from Mayors or Mars?
Mayors.
PB Mayors.
Thank you.
And you would be, sir?
My name is Michael Garber,
Michael
and
Garber.
I am the audit partner in charge for the Caroline County audit this past year. Mr. Chairman and board members, thank you for giving me a time this evening to talk a little bit about the audit. Before I get started, I do want to introduce Betsy Hedrick. Betsy was here just about every day during the audit. Betsy is one of my partners, and she was here supervising those on the ground, doing a lot of the work, and so any of the hard questions, I'm going to make sure she has a chance to answer. I know we're 9 months into our next fiscal year, and we're already talking budgets for the upcoming year. So standing here and going through this document and going through the numbers, I think at this point in time is probably not the best use of any of our time. I know there are several other things and questions that you probably have. I do want to point out a few things, though, regarding the comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year. And just those couple things are, one, you did receive an unqualified opinion on your financial statements. An unqualified opinion means it's clean. We didn't find any material errors within the financial statements itself. So that's the best type of opinion that you can get. There are also two other opinions in the financial statements in the back. The first one has to do with internal control and compliance. And within that opinion, that can be found on pages 120 and 121 of the document. We list out there the 7 different findings that we had, or reference those findings in the back from that opinion of internal control and compliance. And then following that opinion is our last opinion, can be found on page 122 and 123, and that has to do with your federal awards or your single audit. And that opinion was unqualified as well. And so again, it was the best opinion we could give. There are special requirements that as auditors we have to do for your federal awards. And so that opinion is in relation to those federal dollars that you've spent throughout the fiscal year. I don't have many other comments to make on the financial statements themselves other than to point out those opinions and some of the, in the back, the findings, as well as then following those findings, though, is what's called the corrective action plan, where management has gone in and made their recommendations and suggestions on how they're going to deal with those findings that we had during the audit. I think you've received 2 other documents from us as well. One is a letter to the Board of Supervisors with today's date, March 12, 2003. Hopefully you have that document and had a chance to read through it. That is a requirement as auditors that we have to communicate to either an audit committee or a finance committee, and in this case, since you don't have either of those, to the Board of Supervisors. And in that document, we spell out any difficulties we may have had during the audit. We talk about significant journal entries and things and corrections that we made to the audit. Those are in there, as well as any significant estimates that are in the financial statements. Every set of financial statements has some sorts of estimates, whether it's depreciation when we're estimating the life of an asset, or in this instance for you all, of course, VRS uses huge estimates in the actuaries to calculate assets, liabilities, future payments, and so some of those things like that are included in your financial statements. So those large estimates we try to point out in that document as well. The last document then is our management letter, and it has several comments, it has several suggestions in that document for management and certainly for the board to consider. We look at that document as here's some of the more detailed work we did. Some of the things that are in here are actually not part of our auditing standards that we have to do. They're just things that we want to do to add a little bit extra benefit to the audit itself. And when we find things that, quite frankly, aren't material to the financial statements, but we think where controls can be tightened up a little bit more than what we have, then we try to put them into this document for you to consider. That's really all I prepared to go over this evening as far as a prepared speech. I'm sure there's some questions, and I'll be happy to answer any of those at this time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garber. With reference to the, well, first, the audit was completed when?
We finished the audit and dated our opinion February 20th of this year.
And you were basically auditing the county books in June 2012, or June 30th, 2012.
That is the date we were asked to audit. That's correct, to that fiscal year.
So you're auditing last year's finances and giving us this report now, and like you said in your presentation, it's 9 months, 8 months later. Well, 9, this is March.
Yes.
So some of the things that you reference in your statements of opinion have been corrected. Or you're not sure, you just say what it is and it's up to...
That's correct, and we'll look at that then for this year's audit.
Okay.
One of the standards for auditing used to be you could issue these reports and management letter comments in the old standards, and I didn't have to worry about it next year, whether they were corrected or not. Under the new standards, I can't do that anymore. So if these things still haven't been corrected, you'll hear about it again after next year's audit. So I have to keep mentioning them until they are corrected. But I have not looked into them yet this fiscal year. Most of these items, we really began our audit probably May, I think, or June. We came and started our preliminary field work and documenting procedures, controls, things of that nature. And if we discovered any of these things during that time, we tried to communicate them then. Typically, when we find something that we're going to put into this management letter, we try to communicate it as early as we can so that it can, one, we can all agree to the facts as they are before we write it up, and two, gives them a chance then to start thinking about the corrective action plan.
Thank you, Mr. Garber, and trust me, county staff will be hearing about issues before you will.
Sure. So
we'll try to make sure we take those. Okay, we're going to switch the order. Mr. Taylor, you have any questions?
Just a couple.
Sure.
And I think they're just for clarification. And because as you look through this, it's a lot to digest.
It is.
You said that as far as your recommendation or what you found, basically you found everything basically to be in order. You didn't see any discrepancies that you felt were serious or that
Sure.
raised any flags.
Nothing that raised any flags.
Okay.
If we had come across anything that we really just didn't like the way it looked, the way it appeared, we dig a little deeper, we do a little more inquiry, do some more observation, whatever needs to be done. And if we find something, we pretty much immediately go to the county administrator and we would go through what we had found and say, you want us to go further? Does this warrant more investigation? Do I need to bring in someone else to look at some of this? So if we had found anything like that, you would have heard about it long before now.
Okay. So then, and there are instances throughout here where you make comments, I guess, about the way things were handled that could be handled differently or maybe a better way. Mm-hmm. But that's just kind of cosmetic, not something that...
In our world, in our audit world, we really have three different levels of findings. We have material weaknesses, which is the ones that could have significant impact. We have a significant deficiency, which is a little bit below material weakness, and then we have just what's called a deficiency. In this document, in the back, the 7 comments I referred to, that's where we spell out our material weaknesses and our significant deficiencies. The other document, some of these may be deficiencies. Some of them may just be suggestions. I mean, I'm not even sure I classify all these as a deficiency. They're just suggestions for tightening controls, but sometimes a lack of having enough staff doesn't mean that we can go right out and hire somebody to fix, make things tighter, because we just don't have the funds to do that, or it doesn't make sense to do that. But we want to point those things out to you and let you consider those types of things.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Yeah. Based on your audit, you were saying that the county had an unencumbered balance of $11,139,000?
I believe that was the number in the general fund.
Yes.
On page 15, yes, sir.
And last year it was... I saw it somewhere as I was looking through it today.
Not sure last year's unencumbered
Roughly $4 million? $5 million?
Well, that includes the money that was owed from the utility fund.
I'm sorry, includes what?
That includes the money that was owed from the utility fund. That's why it's $11 million.
Thank you.
His assets are on page 65 for the ending year.
But the point was the unencumbered balance included the money the utility system owed the county, and that's where that 11 million looks really good, but it's not really 11 million.
I think what's on page 65 doesn't account for that. I think, and that was my question, have they taken that out?
Yeah, it's back to $6 million.
Right, right. And that's what Mr. Cully was saying to me, so I just wanted to make sure you had it too.
My other question has to do with, and it's tied with the audit, but it's also tied with your additional request for additional funding.
Yes, sir.
Because you almost doubled. Well, I think you've had a contract for like $55,000 and you're asking for another $30,000 in addition. And one of the reasons you're giving is the fact that you were not able to get information from the school system on 2 issues, or is it only on 1 issue?
We weren't able to get information from the school system on several issues. Okay. 2 of the largest issues had to do with the federal forestry fund money.
Right.
And the other one was the, I believe it had to do with Title I.
Okay. So it had nothing to do with personnel records?
That's one of the other issues as well. There were several things that we requested more than one time, and I'll just say we went around in circles on trying to gather those documents and gain access to those documents to do our testing and to do our work.
Is that something that your audit would have normally looked at as far as the personnel records are concerned?
Every single audit I do. And every single auditor who does an audit should be looking at payroll records. I don't know how any auditor would ever do an audit, certainly of a program such as Title I, where almost the majority of the money is payroll, and not look at payroll records to be able to audit those funds.
So now, are we talking about personnel or are we talking about payroll? I've been under the impression that it was personnel records.
Personnel files
rather than
is part
just,
of
personnel
that.
files rather than the payroll files. And I just want to make sure this is.
There is a distinction between the two.
There is. I mean, there's
Well, I think
payroll.
there's a distinction between the two.
Yes, there's payroll records
Absolutely.
as far as timesheets
Yeah,
and
I understand
approval,
that.
and that's payroll records. And then there's personnel files, and,
Right.
and we look at both of that. We look at everything.
Okay. Even though a person's personnel record is it's confidential. If the school system has a problem with a educator, and they put something derogatory about their teaching style or their inability to teach correctly,
Sure.
that goes in that file.
Yeah.
So you're requesting that information as well?
No, there's only a few things we're trying to look at in that file. We're not sitting there flipping through every page and read everything in there. We want to see their hire date. We want to see approved salary. We want to see that this person has been designated as a Title I specialist or a Title VI-B person, and that's what they were hired to do under that grant
So
program.
you're only asking for the people that were working within the Title I programs?
For the Title I program, we also do what's known as a random sample of all payroll files. And once we do that random sample, it could be anyone within the school system. It might be superintendents.
Sure. And I have no problem with the payroll files, but I think there's a distinct difference between the payroll files and the personnel files.
Sure.
And I'm just wanted to make sure that the information I've been given as far as personnel files are concerned, I just question whether you should have gone to the link that you did to cost the additional funds just strictly for personnel files.
That's just one portion of that extra
Gotcha.
billing, sir.
I understand. Thank
Sure.
you. That's it. I have nothing else.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Akers. Mr. Underwood, your
No,
turn.
sir.
Mr.
No, sir,
Seeley.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I want to go back to your 3 levels of findings.
Sure.
And I want to know what trips you from no issue to the second to the third. What does it take to actually move down that scale?
Sure. There's a couple different things. One, solely based on the dollar of an error that we may find. If we find a mistake in the financial statements that's above what we have determined is material, and we set our materiality levels before we come in and do the audit. So we look at total assets, total revenues, liabilities. There was a formula that we use for all of our audits to determine a number, and we use that kind of as a guideline for materiality. So if we find an error above that number, it's automatic. The standards tell us if you find something, you have a journal entry that's that large, it's an automatic material error. We could also find something that may not be a huge number difference, but let's say the error is in cash or receivables, and it's an error that, if goes long enough or unnoticed, could lead to a large misstatement in the financial statements. Then we could sit back and say, okay, because of the nature of the error or where we found it, the type of account it's in, then it becomes a material error as well. After that, to drop down to significant deficiency or just a deficiency itself, we usually look at a percentage of ML, 15 to 20%, and say, okay, how large was the error we found? And below that number, or around that number, we put it in one category or the other. A lot of it has to do with auditor judgment.
Because some of the deficiencies that you noted, I didn't see that there was any investigation to see how much those were. Looked like, in one particular case, there was a roundabout guess, and in others, there weren't any drill down in terms of how much that actually was, or if it was ever really reconciled. I mean, in your findings. And so I guess I'm saying that if you're saying there's no...
I'm not sure which one was you're referencing as a roundabout guess. Because typically I don't put things in my documents with a roundabout guess. I try to avoid that as much as possible.
And I don't remember the page.
And maybe
I don't
that's
know
just...
that I marked it.
That's fine.
It was
And certainly, if there's additional questions after tonight, I'm more than willing to come
can do
back
that.
and answer other questions,
we can do
or
that.
through email, or when we come back to do this year's audit, and we set up our week for planning. If there's additional questions, we'll be here that week. We'd be happy to meet with, individually, one-on-one, however that works as well that week we're here.
And
So,
you have a 2-year contract?
honestly, I don't remember how long it is.
5-year contract?
I guess my other question is,
Wait a minute, Jeff. You should be here every other week then.
But I'm going to get questioned on my bill if I'm here every other week.
It's going to cost us too much.
Yeah, I can do it.
Oh, we're going to do fixed price contract next time. Jeff?
now I lost my train of thought.
Sorry.
There were a couple of sections in here that referenced different departments that had different procedural problems.
Okay.
Deficiencies. And, thank you, Mr. Underwood. I guess I'm particularly interested in the gas card situation and/or the credit card situation.
Both of those areas, one of the things that we do in our audit, neither one of these areas are we required to look at. But for all of our audits, when we do our audits, there's areas that we always look at extra. Credit card billings, employee and expense reimbursements, gas cards, gas usage, things of these nature that are very immaterial to the financial statements. But the type of things that we have seen in the past where sometimes there's abuse with those types of things. And so we always try to make sure outside of our normal sample, we pull a few just to look at, because that's just what we like to do. In doing that, we found some areas where the controls should be a little tighter. We found some areas where supporting documentation along with a credit card statement wasn't supplied at the time that the statement was paid or given from one department to finance to pay. And we did not dig in any deeper to those things, but we did document it and say, we've got a finding here, we need to do better.
I guess, so this is a brand-new contract to us, this?
Yes.
So this is why the audit is different than it's been in years past?
Exactly.
Because this is a very different audit.
But then you
have
mentioned
seen.
standards had changed also.
Standards have changed, and we're probably, I would say, more detailed firm than some other firms are. I'll just leave it at that.
And that, I will applaud that. How's that?
So.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Black?
Yeah, I've got a couple questions.
Sure.
The deficiencies or problems that you found, when you do the audit again next year, will you be also looking at the same things that you found this year to make sure that they were corrected? Will we go going right back down to the same issues?
Absolutely. And my guess is, because the audit did take so long to get done, and some of these things may have been found in October or November or December, they'll probably reappear because they probably weren't corrected during this fiscal year, at the beginning of the year.
Okay. I guess the second question I have, and it was a more of a financial thing. It said on page 100, I don't know if you have it in front of you.
I do.
And it's something that popped in. I was looking at this, and something that popped in. It says county's ability to issue additional debt in future, and it says table 11. And I turned to table 11, and I don't, unless I'm, not seeing things, I don't see a number of ability to issue additional debt. And I was just kind of wondering if there was when I look at table 11 on page 113, I mean, that's kind of a big thing right now for the county. I'm seeing real property tax levies and collections.
You're correct.
And I looked through the rest of it, and maybe I'm mistaken, but I didn't see that number in there. I saw a number of 125 million, and I just was wondering kind of a ceiling, or if there was a ceiling, and that was...
The reference is incorrect in the document, so I'll have to figure out why that reference is wrong. But that's a reference, table 11. The county does have a debt ceiling. I think 10% of your real estate
But that's,
value.
that's more of a procedure, a policy. Yeah.
That's not illegal. That applies to
Right.
towns, not counties.
Okay. You do.
Yeah, we just have
You're
a
right, you're right.
policy,
No, you're
not
correct.
necessarily a requirement.
That's
and
correct, yeah.
There's a distinct difference.
That's correct.
Okay. So when you did that, I mean, but you would